Welcome to the Dethroning Your Inner Critic YouTube channel. I'm Joanna Kleinman, psychotherapist, best-selling author, and founder and CEO of Dethroning Your Inner Critic, a human growth and potential company. And today, we're going to dive into resistance. So, here's the thing. Every successful person encounters resistance. Every single person. It's like an unwelcome guest that shows up when you least expect it. So in today's episode, we're going to explore how resistance manifests and the deep-seated reasons behind it. And most importantly, how to break free from its grasp. Now, for self-actualized people like you and me, right? We're always looking for growth, right? I assume that's why you're here. So the resistance is really like a sneaky adversary. Okay, it doesn't announce its presence with trumpets and fanfare. Instead, it sort of sneaks in and it undermines your progress before you even realize that it's there. And the reason being is because resistance is rooted in our DNA, okay? So you can't just simply overcome resistance, okay? But we don't have to be victims to it. So in this episode, we're going to unravel the 6 subtle ways that resistance reveals itself, and we're going to learn how to navigate through it. And we're going to get closer and closer to unhooking from resistance so that we can align with our dreams with each step, okay? So most ambitious and driven people have dabbled in personal growth, right? You might have sought guidance from a coach or a therapist. You might have recited affirmations about magic that happens outside of your comfort zone, but still that resistance remains elusive, right? It kind of lurks underneath it all in the deep shadows, okay? So we might have a hunch that it's there. We can't really put our finger on it. So if you have a big vision, you have monumental dreams, okay? Your resistance is going to do its best to throw roadblocks your way, minute by minute by minute, day by day, okay? But here's the thing, right? Every single person experiences it. I don't care if you look at somebody and you think, oh my God, they're so successful. I wish I were where they are. They deal with resistance, okay? So whether you're striving to make your next $1 million in your business or you're trying to live a life of ease and flow and joy, resistance is going to be there, okay? Because your mind, your body, your very being is wired to resist change, okay? And that mind that's hardwired to resist change, that's the mind that I call your inner critic mind. That's the part of you that's encoded in your DNA. It's the reason why 80% of New Year's resolutions crumble by February. It's the reason why so many people give up on their biggest life goals and dreams. Okay, so as you are venturing into uncharted territory and exploring something new in your life, okay, your ingrained hard wiring perceives any unknown as a threat, and therefore it's unsafe. And this even happens when you're crystal clear about what you're creating, okay? So you are the visionary who yearns for the next level, okay? And you find yourself evolving and growing and pursuing your dreams, but your survival mechanism, your very fundamental, deeply hardwired system is actively working against you, okay? So it's as if, right, somewhere that inner critic mind is saying, hold on, we can't deal with change. That is way too dangerous, because your inner critic mind hates the unknown, hates the unpredictable part of change. So this triggers our fear response. And this is where resistance raises its head, okay? So resistance stems from that deeply ingrained fear response, okay? That primitive fear response from way back when we were cave women and cavemen, okay? So our survival instinct is hardwired into those primitive parts of our brain, okay? So yes, we live in the 21st century, but the part of our brain that has those survival fear mechanisms has not evolved much since the days that we were hunters and gatherers, okay? So we keep reacting in our life now as though we're under constant threat of prehistoric predators, except those prehistoric predators are judgment and failure and criticism and inadequacy, okay? So as you take your steps forward towards your dream and you align yourself with your vision, your inner critic's going to shout louder than ever before, right? So your inner critic might tell you, I'm not good enough to do this. I don't really have what it takes yet. I'm not there yet. I need to wait. I need to get more information. I need to be better at this. I need to get my confidence up. And you might truly believe that someday you'll be ready. Someday you'll be at a different level, and then it'll all come together. But this is so important. That is just going to keep you in the same version of yourself now. And it's going to keep you in the same version of your life that you're in right now. Because your inner critic's fear response, okay, is just employing resistance to convince you that your dreams are a threat. Okay, even though you see them as your aspirations, right? So it's your dreams versus your inner critic survival instincts, okay? That's why I created the mind method. That the mind method is all about helping you unhook yourself from the version of you that your inner critic created, okay? And to be able to dive deep into the inner work, okay? That's a requirement. You've got to dive deep into your subconscious and do the inner work that's required to overcome your blocks and to achieve those new heights of success in both your professional and your personal life, okay? So resistance is not an if, it's a when. No matter what growth or expansion you're seeking, you're going to spend a lot of time in that unknown and unfamiliar. Every time we're up leveling our life, we step into the unknown and the unfamiliar, okay? And the thing is, nothing about how your life is going in any arena is going to change until you change, okay? So now let's talk about the secret weapon to resistance. It's actually the I step of the mind method, which is to investigate the indication signs of your inner critic. These are the blinking red lights that alert you that your inner critic mind has taken over your mind, body, spirit. Okay, so this is the step that has you understand and become intimately familiar with those subtle nuances of your inner critic mind. Because the key to defeating resistance is to recognize and understand exactly how and when and why it presents itself, right? And so your resistance is a master of disguise, okay? Now, remember that we all have a combination of 5 different inner critics that are masterful at creating our resistance. So I'm going to reveal how your inner critics create different kinds of resistance so you can actually have the tools to thwart resistance before it holds you back and keeps you stuck. So back in the early days when I was starting my business, my inadequate inner critic created so much resistance within me, okay? And she did this by creating a lack of clarity or confusion for me, right? So I'd sit there and I would feel the weight of all the important tasks. I was writing my book and I was still creating the Mastering Your Mind program, and I would engage in all different kinds of time-sucking tasks, right? I'd rearrange my to-do list. I'd work on things that didn't really move the needle of what I was creating. I responded to emails that I didn't really need to respond to. It was my way of feeling productive, even though I wasn't making real progress, okay? Now, when I spot these subtle signs of resistance, I know now it's my inadequate inner critic at play, okay? See, that's one of my indication signs. That's one of the classic indication signs of my inner critic, right? So when I see her drumming up distraction and getting involved in other things, okay, that's when I can just take a breath, get present, and remind myself, I'm here to change the world, okay? It's not about me keeping myself safe from the possibility of failure or criticism or rejection. This is about the people who need to rewire a new mind to do their most important work in the world. What do those people need from me? Who cares if I'm scared? Who cares if I feel like I'm not good enough right now? Who cares if my inner critic is saying, this could fail, right? It's just my inner critic, okay? So that is when I can really put her right here on the palm of my hand and say, I see you. I am actually observing you. I'm separate from you. I don't need to get fused with your fear. And then I can just sit down and focus on my vision and finish the most important task, okay? Now, the question is, how do you know it's resistance? That's the tricky part, okay? Because resistance from our inner critic is really effective because it kind of seems reasonable, right? I mean, it might even masquerade as a good thing, okay? So recognizing your resistance for what it truly is does require a deep level of self-awareness and a deep level of self-love, okay? Because you can easily fool yourself into thinking that your resistance is actually justified, okay? So you've got to pierce through your resistance and really see your inner critic hard at work, okay? So we've got to take a really hard look at what is our biggest priority right now, okay? And honestly assess what is the best use of my time and energy when I'm aligned with my biggest dream, okay? Now, you want to have a clear vision of the life that you're designing and act from that version of yourself who's already living that life right now. What would she do? And you might not even have a clear vision of exactly what you're designing, but you can still see yourself in that life. You can still see yourself making the impact you want to make, even if you're not clear about who you want to make it with, right? You're very clear about how you want to feel and how you want others to feel in the work that you're doing or in the way that you're raising your family or in the interactions that you're having with your team, right? So let's go back to my earlier example, all right? So responding to emails might seem like a reasonable and important task, right? But to see it as my inner critic's resistance, I have to honestly look at what is the most valuable use of my time in pursuit of my vision to impact the world, right? So in those moments, that's where I need to be deeply connected to my vision. I need to be deeply connected to the woman who's already impacting thousands of people, okay? That's where I focus. And then I get crystal clear on what's crucial, okay? So there are times you have to ask yourself, is the choice I'm making bringing me closer to my vision, or is it pulling me further away? Am I embodying that version of myself who's already enjoying the relationships, the wealth, the impact, right? The being a keynote speaker or being a TED speaker, okay? So to see it for my inner critic's resistance, I have to be really honest about my priorities and the best use of my time. And I have to take radical personal responsibility for that big vision and that dream. And I have to say, that's already a done deal. That's already me. So I just need to not stop no matter what. No matter if I'm afraid, no matter if I feel like I want to just throw in the towel. Okay? So you have to better understand how your resistance operates and how to spot it. So let's talk about the ways that our 5 different inner critics create resistance. Okay, so the first way is that we've got that disempowering, low level thinking. Okay, now remember, thoughts have energy. So thoughts like, I don't know how, or I'm not ready yet, or this is just too much, or this is too hard, or who am I to do this, right? Kind of sounds like imposter syndrome, right? That's my inadequate inner critic's favorite default thinking. Okay, so I'm faced with that all the time. Inner critics can also create confusion or lack of clarity, right? So your inner critic might try and convince you that you don't yet have the clarity to move forward. And you might therefore believe that you don't know enough yet to take action. You need to get really clear on your vision first, right? Now, I can tell you that the only thing that gave me true clarity about really who I'm meant to serve is action, okay? Now, I have a restless inner critic. She's always searching for the next best thing. So she convinces me I need a very clear vision before I can move forward, okay? But this is the thing that's so important. Your clarity comes from action. And our inner critic will create resistance when we believe we need clarity first. I had to take massive action for many years before I became 100% clear about exactly who I'm meant to serve, okay? And if I hadn't taken all of that massive action, I wouldn't have clarity now because I needed to actually experience who I was not for to become crystal clear for who I am for. Overwhelm. So this comes from overcommitting and trying to please everyone. And this is when you have no time or energy for yourself. Now that's the guilty inner critic, okay? So there were years where I tried to be for everyone. I work with people in my business who were really not up to taking themselves on at the level that's required when you're doing your most important work. They just wanted to feel better about themselves, which is really important work. That's really important work. But now that's not who I'm for. Okay? And I felt guilty for a while for not serving those people as well. I had to learn that by experiencing my overwhelm to try to serve everyone, right? That wasn't serving anyone, especially me. And that's how I got really clear that I now help visionaries to get connected to their higher selves, okay? Now, I spent years not being connected to my higher self. And once I knew how to recognize my conditioned inner critic mind and the self that my inner critic created, and then I could unhook myself from her, I could step into a whole new future vision of myself. That's when my entire life changed. Now I lead my life from that vision of myself. I lead my life now. That's how my life has changed. That's what I support all my clients in doing. Lack of motivation can manifest itself as boredom or a sense that I just don't feel like doing this right now, or why do I have to do this in the first place? I hear a lot of entrepreneurs say, I shouldn't have to put myself out there on social media, right? Now that's the victim inner critic that says, you know what? It's social media's fault that I'm constantly comparing myself and feeling like I never measure up, right? It's not social media's fault. It's your inner critic playing tricks on you to keep you within your comfort zone, keep you comparing yourself to other people, keeping you feeling like you're not good enough and you don't measure up, okay? And so therefore, that has you dread certain things about your business because what is really underneath that dread is fear, okay? That's what is really subconsciously underneath all of our resistance. And when I used to be one and the same with my inner critic, I felt that way too, okay? But I have completely shifted the lens through which I see everything. So the things that used to trigger my inner critic, okay, don't trigger her anymore. And now I have a whole new meaning that I assign to being visible on social media. I have a whole new meaning that I assign to investing money in my business, right? And in my personal and professional growth. So the resistance used to be there because I was looking through my old lens of my old self. So I was a victim about needing to spend money and what it takes to really impact the people that I want to impact. Okay, now, distraction of that new shiny object. That is my restless inner critic's favorite pastime. Okay, she has a field day with this one. Not only does she create resistance by telling me to handle non-essential tasks, right, instead of focusing on the vital ones, she also distracts me, right? So she'll convince me to abandon my current vision because this vision seems way better, okay? And that's what I've really had to learn not to do, right? Just stick with my one vision and only do the essential tasks that are in alignment with that one vision. Now, the last way that resistance can show up is in just a blank mind, okay? So it's that feeling where you don't know what to do. You don't know what to write. You don't know what to think next. You don't know what action to take next. Now that is the perfectionist inner critic, okay? So writer's block is a really good example. The truth is, it's self-imposed because your inner critic judges your ideas and your words as you produce them and convinces you that it's just not good enough and it needs to be almost perfect, which of course is complete BS because there's no such thing as perfect. So, can you see those subtle and nuanced nature of the resistance that our inner critics create? It doesn't always show up in ways that scream danger, right? So distraction might seem harmless, but it blocks you. overwhelm might appear like something normal, given that we live in this society with all these expectations, and confusion, right? That can be attributed to a lot of external factors, right? Maybe you didn't get enough sleep, or, right, you didn't get the coffee that you needed, or you're having some issues in some other parts of your relationship or your life. So here's the critical takeaway from today, okay? If you feel resistance, it is because you're changing and you're evolving. And that's exactly what you have to do to realize your vision. Your resistance is just an indication sign of your inner critic. It is that blinking red light that your inner critic has taken over your mind, okay? But here's the thing. It's also an invitation to dig deep and see your inner critic's attempts to keep you within the safe and familiar confines of your comfort zone, okay? This is what it feels like when you're doing the things you need to do to become the version of you that's in your vision. When you're moving into alignment with your dreams and you're up-leveling and growing, your inner critic is going to scream the loudest. She'll do whatever it takes to keep you stuck in resistance. So when you learn to embody that highest version of yourself who already has all of what you want to create and is already enjoying all of the growth and impact and success and wealth and connection and contribution and joy that you want, that's when you can spot your inner critic as soon as she's hijacked your mind. And that's how you resist getting sucked into her resistance. So thanks for watching the Dethroning Your Inner Critic YouTube channel. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe. And if you would please leave me a review, that would be wonderful. That way people can continue to hear this very important content. And of course, share it with your fellow visionary leaders. So together we can all awaken to do our most important work and tap into our unlimited potential and transform the world.